My name is Jeff Hanson, and I work at Autodesk here in the Millyard. Autodesk makes software for all kinds of designers. We make, we make software for architects, for mechanical engineers, for bridge engineers, for civil engineers, for special effects in movies. So, any blockbuster movie that you see, almost every special effects shot is going to involve our products in some way or another. One of our old CEOs used to use a turn of phrase that I found kind of interesting, so I still use it to this day. She used to say, if you look around the world, if God didn't make it, Autodesk probably had a hand in it. So I kind of like that. It's an interesting way of framing what we do and how long we've kind of been at it.
How do you describe a typical day at work?
So for me, I work as a learning content developer for Autodesk. So in my previous life, I was an architect before I came to Autodesk. So really, I help the software developers who are making the software, I help them communicate how the software is supposed to work and what architects are going to do with it. So I help the architects understand what the intention was behind the software, how you use it, how you get your work done. So my job is to make that learning content. So that learning content can take the form of written documentation. So when somebody presses help in the software, the thing that pops up, it can be images that help explain diagrams, things like that. I do videos of this is how you do this particular task inside of the software. I might do tutorials that are step-by-step, do this, do that. And I might, that it might involve making, kind of sample little buildings for our customers to use so they can kind of, in a sandbox, play with the software and learn about it in that way. So that's one part of my job as a learning content developer. The other part of that is because I'm an architect, or was an architect, I'm a subject matter expert for our teams as well. So as a subject matter expert, I can communicate to the software developers who maybe don't have a background in architecture. I can communicate to them what an architect is trying to do when they're using the software. So that helps them make the software do what it's supposed to do, put buttons in the right place, make a feature that does this or that or the other thing to help architects achieve their goals. So I bring that expertise to the software development team so they know what to do. And then also as a teacher, I'm helping the software developers understand how people learn and how people use that software. So, is a button better here? Is a button better there? Is it better to have text on the button? Is it better to use a round checkbox? So those kind of things, I help them make those decisions as well.
What skills or education brought you to this job?
The educational path, when I set out, I didn't have this goal of I'm going to become a person working at Autodesk, working with software every day. So that wasn't my intention when I started down the road. Really, it started as I want to be an architect. From working in high school, when I started in high school, it was kind of, I'm dating myself, I suppose, is kind of the dawn of when computers were like really put onto people's desktops and were tools that people could use every day. And so in high school, we got AutoCAD, which is one of the products Autodesk makes. We got it in there, and I would draw on that and loved doing it. I loved drawing on it. And our teacher had a packet of information or everything you had to do for the semester. And working on AutoCAD, you were so much faster. I could complete that whole packet in 9 weeks instead of the whole semester. So I was like, wow, this is great. And so I really wanted to draw and do things on the computer. That was my goal. And when I went and told my mom that, I said, I want to draw things on the computer. I want to be an artist and work on the computer. I want to do animations for like a commercial or something like that. And she said, that's not a job. That's not something you go to college for. Because at the time it wasn't. It was very early on in that stage. And so she told me, you can't go to college for that. That's not something you go to college for. And I said, well, thought to myself, I can go to college to be an architect, and architects draw on the computer. That's what I want to do. So I set on the road to be an architect. And so that involved, I took the path, there's a couple ways to become an architect, but I took the path of going to an undergraduate college and getting a degree in architecture there, a Bachelor of Arts. And then because it's a Bachelor of Arts, I had to go and get a master's degree as well. So I went and got a master's degree as a Master of Architecture, and then was able to start working as an architect.
What changes have you seen while working in Manchester's Millyard?
I have worked in Manchester. I'm getting close to starting my 17th year at Autodesk. And so I've been here since then. Autodesk moved me from where I was working as an architect to Manchester. And so over those 17 years, I think there's been a steady kind of growth in the technology sector here in Manchester, as probably everywhere else. But I think that, Manchester definitely has kind of fostered that environment and gives it an ability to grow. And I think having DECA here as one of the kind of like anchors of the Millyard and a long time technology company that's been here, I think that has kind of been a catalyst for other growth in the area. Certainly, other companies exist without them, but it certainly is a catalyst, and I think that is one of the things that has spurred growth here.
How does the Millyard history benefit today's STEM companies?
So I think I maybe have a unique perspective on that particular question, in that I kind of approach it as an architect, oddly enough, in that seeing the Millyard that exists here, that is such a great asset. These buildings that exist are, they're marvels of their time. They were like the battleships and the aircraft carriers of the time when they were built, the highest technology. But the versatility of these buildings over the years is one of the things that I think allows Manchester to continue to grow and change. And you can swap things in and out of these buildings so easily. And they have, these great high ceilings and natural light from both sides. And, they're built to hold whatever you want to put in them. So I think that piece of Manchester's history, the asset of these buildings, is so incredibly great. I think, there's also, of course, the kind of human work ethic that the folks who were originally here for the mills, I think that certainly adds to it. But it's the resource of these buildings that really can serve to drive, current economic, the economic engine here, and into the future. I think these buildings are, they should be treasured and protected and used, right? We don't want to, although we're sitting here in a museum, we don't want them to just be a museum to the past. They're machines for use, and they can still be used, going on 150, 170 years since they were built.
Any advice to those getting started in STEM?
I think my story as somebody working in STEM, I think it's, I'm not trying to be inspiring to anybody, but I think there's maybe a lesson to be learned from anybody who might look at this down the road. And maybe I'm not pulling back the curtain on something people don't know, but the path that you set out on in life isn't necessarily the path that you finish on, right? I think my story is a little bit unique in that I started down this path of architecture, which is a pursuit, certainly it touches on STEM things. It's not solitary by itself, but kind of straddles this line, which is maybe something that I like, straddles this line between art and engineering, right? And so, I started down this path of architecture, and then I got to a point, kind of a crossroads in my career, where it was, I could continue down the road of being an architect, becoming a licensed architect, and working in that arena, and I would have been totally fine with that. But I was about 8 years into my career, and I was pretty good at using technology. I was good at using the computer. It was the part of architecture that I liked the best. I didn't like the clients. I didn't necessarily like the projects we were working on. I didn't like having to go find work. I didn't like all of that stuff. I liked sitting down and drawing on the computer. So, and I like teaching people how to draw on the computer. I was the guy who people came to in our office. So, when Autodesk approached me, I didn't come to them. They actually approached me because they had recognized I worked with I gave away free advice to other customers. As I was a customer, I gave away free advice. And I guess my advice was so good, they actually came and offered me a job. So I was sitting at this crossroads, and it was this opportunity that I could take. I could go and pursue this software part of my career and kind of abandon architecture, be tangentially related to it, but I'm going to go see what that's all about and see if I can be successful. And if I'm not successful, I can always go back and be an architect. And I'm, again, I've dated myself a little bit. I'm not the youngest person in the world, but I could still go back to industry. I still have those skills. I can still go back to being an architect, or I can continue on as a software person. Maybe as I approach retirement, closer to retirement age, maybe I want to go back and do that. But I think that part of my story in fitting in with STEM is that you don't necessarily know where you're going, but being open to things and having an attitude of continuous learning and wanting to know more, and kind of that pursuit of education and knowledge is something that people should take away. And that just because you didn't start at this as an 18-year-old, you knew this was what you wanted to do, and that's the only thing you wanted to do. You can come to these things at any point in your life, as long as you're open to them and welcome them in.